I had one drawing teacher, and in that particular class I was like his prize pupil. It was just drawing still lifes. But he was always talking to me and he loved my work, until one day I told him that I wanted to be a cartoonist. And when I told him that, I'm not kidding, when I told him that, he just turned on his heels and walked away, and he never talked to me again. My name's Peter Bagge, and I'm best known for hate comics, what's generally called an alternative cartoonist. The comics I do are geared towards a more adult audience, and it basically means anything that isn't superhero comics. The first thing was children's books, like Richard Scarry's books, Best World Book Ever. That was my favorite book. And then later on, Peanuts and all the Funny Pages stuff. Anything that was funny, I liked. Beetle Bailey, BC, Dennis the Menace. Then later Mad. I was a huge Mad magazine fan. I never got too into superheroes. I read them, but I wasn't crazy about them. It wasn't until I was in art school that I came across what were known as underground comics. And the main underground cartoonist was a guy named Robert Crumb. And what he did that completely floored me was he took the traditional comic book format, but everything from cover to cover was by him. There were no Twinkie ads in there, just took the format, but just did whatever he wanted with every single page. And when I saw that, when I saw one of his comics, that's when I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I just thought that was perfect. Back then, comics had a much more disreputable reputation. It was really looked down upon. And every art teacher I ever had, they used to even say it wasn't even an art form. They had nothing but disdain for comics. And so my parents, every teacher, they all said, you'll never make a decent living at this. Everybody did everything they could to discourage me from being a cartoonist. There was a regular underground comic book anthology called Weirdo, and my hero, Robert Crumb, was the editor of it. I was always writing him fan letters, sending him my comics. He started publishing my work, and then he asked me if I would take over as managing editor. Which again, it's not a real job, the pay was dismal. It wasn't something to make a living off of. But it was great exposure for me and a great experience, and I did that for about 3 years back in the 80s. Then also I met what was then a fairly new comic book publishing company called Fantagraphics. So I showed them my work, they loved it, and that led to my first own comic book called Neat Stuff, which I did back in the 80s. And then with the same company, I started doing Hate from 1990 on. That pretty much took up the whole decade of the 90s, is just doing those Buddy Bradley stories in Hate magazine. The Bradley Family, which was a weird cross between the Brady Bunch and my own family. On the surface, it was like, here's this fun, wacky sitcom family, but they were thoroughly dysfunctional like my own family and like every family. There was one character in the family named Buddy Bradley who was like the teenage boy. Because he was the most autobiographical of all of my characters, I had more and more ideas for him. Until it reached the point that I decided I might as well just give him his own comic book. For the first time in ages, the character isn't optioned. Nobody has the movie or TV rights to him. But he has been optioned almost non-stop for the last 15 years. They always name whoever is like the latest hot young male star. People were seriously pitching Leonardo DiCaprio, which if you know the character, you'd find that quite amusing, since he's very ugly, my character. I still mainly think of myself as a cartoonist, so when I think of work that I'm proudest of, it's always a strip. It would be the combination of the story itself and the art. If I'm happy with both, then those are the pieces I'm most happy with. It's ironic, every cartoonist whose work was similar to mine, very underground inspired, all the work we got was either with porno magazines or with kids magazines. For some reason they had a very similar aesthetic.